Chapter 12, Meeting Susan Flores. Right after I went up and tried to meet with Ruben at his house up in 710 White Court in Arroyo Grande, it was like a day or two later, I was down on East Branch Street, and I knocked on Susan Flores' house. And again, I'm just now getting in town. I just want to see if I can sit down with these people and talk to them. I was going there with an open mind, and when the door opened, it was actually Mike McConville who opened the door, right? And I told him who I was, and by then they kind of heard of this guy named Dennis. So now that I'm standing on the front porch, he says to me, "Do you have any ID?" I said, "Sure." And I gave him, I had two driver's licenses in my pocket. One was expired, and then I had my brand new one. So I gave him the expired one. And he asked permission. He goes, "Is it okay if I make a copy of this?" I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Wait right here." And he went back inside the house and came out 5 or 6 minutes later, handed me my driver's license back, said, "We don't want to talk to you. You got to leave." And that was it. But, that wasn't I didn't drive 3,000 miles from the East Coast over to California just to have Mike McConville tell me to leave. So I said, "Okay, no problem." So I showed up the next couple of days, and I had my camera with me, and I was just on the sidewalk. And I was just taking pictures. I'm legally allowed to. And sure enough, Sergeant Sanchez comes rolling up because as soon as they saw me, they called 911. And I was quickly learning that the Flores, I don't mean this facetiously, I mean this kind of literally, they got to a point where they were using the Arroyo Grande Police Department as their own Secret Service detail. They weren't ashamed of calling them out and demanding that they run people off of their house. And they really looked like they had the AG police at their beck and call. At least that was my impression. So anyway, I'm talking to Sergeant Sanchez, and he's asking me for my ID. They would always, every time out there, they ask for your ID. I think it's something they got to do. So I'm in the process of doing all that with him. And Susan comes out of the house, and believe it or not, she just pushes right by Sergeant Sanchez and literally jumps on me. And I go down to the ground, and in 2 seconds, Sergeant Sanchez has her up, and he's got her handcuffs on her back. And I still had my camera on me, and that's the picture you saw right here, where I'm taking a picture of Susan being handcuffed by Sergeant Sanchez. And he actually walks her over to the police car and puts her in the back seat. And as this is going on, the other AG police officers are rolling up on the scene. So now there's like 3 or 4 different cars there, 4 or 5 different deputies. And at this time, Susan's sitting in the back seat of the car. The window's halfway down. And the cops, for this moment, they're not talking to me. They're like talking amongst themselves. They have a little huddle. And while this was going on, Susan looks at me and she yells at me. She goes, "Yeah, Paul killed Kristen. And he killed that Montefini girl, too." And what she was referring to is, she meant to say Montefiore. She didn't understand. I was also out looking for a family friend of mine from Charlotte, North Carolina. Her name is Kristen Modafferi, who disappeared in San Francisco. So somehow Susan Flores realized my connection to the Modafferi family. She yelled that out as well. So that was my connection to meeting Susan Flores. And that time there was probably as nice as she's ever been to me. She's been that angry or worse the entire time, and just not a very, very, very nice woman.